Vintage Story, like many other survival games in the genre, puts a heavy emphasis on carving out your own little place in an astoundingly vast world. From the moment you set off on a brand new adventure, there's a voice in the back of your head saying, where should I build my first base? Every cave you see, mountain you wander past, and waterfront oasis on the horizon gets the gears of endless base building possibilities turning. And my first journey into Vintage Story was no different. The excitement of exploration, the risk around every corner, unknown enemies lurking around in the dark. It was all there waiting to be explored. And oh boy was I ready to explore it. I spent the first few hours of my Vintage Story playthrough wandering aimlessly through granite deserts, struggling to find food at every turn, and eventually starving to death multiple times. I quickly learned that fire making would be paramount to my survival in the wilderness of Vintage Story. With my stomach full of bushmeat, rabbits, raccoons, whatever I could get my hands on, I headed deeper and deeper into a pine forest, eventually traversing over steep granite cliffs, tumbling my way down large earthen hills, consuming any berry and vegetable I could find along the way, just to keep it healthy. It wasn't long before I found my first clay deposit and the perfect place to settle down. The valley, nestled between a horseshoe of mountain ranges and a giant lake, with a perfectly sized piece of flat land right in the middle. I decided that this was the perfect spot and began laying a foundation. My first couple weeks in the valley consisted of finding food sources, familiarizing myself with the area, and meeting the neighbors. I went from constantly starving to finally getting the hang of things, but this peaceful bliss that I was living in did not last very long. Yo, what is that? What the hell is that? Oh, do I get... Oh. What? Oh wait, that's a bear. Jesus Christ. Ah! Something strange was happening. Ominous noises coming from caves, visual tears in the space-time that seemed to affect my sanity somehow. Just admiring the scenery. It's lovely. 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 Everything's fine, it's lovely. And then they arrived. The drifters. Non-human monsters made of fabric and metal. Monsters that appear out of seemingly nowhere, with one goal to hunt you down. I was not prepared, my base was not prepared, and I was quickly realizing that finding a meal at the end of every day was not going to be the hardest part of this game. So I quickly pivoted my attention to fortifying my defenses. Collecting what rocks I could in the surrounding area, I started fortifying my walls with cobblestone. I then constructed a thatch roof. Now, I could just throw more dirt on the roof and call it a day, but if alien freaks are going to be knocking at my door every night trying to murder me, I'd rather be murdered in my own beautiful home. I built the base in an A-frame style, with the roof coming all the way to the ground and reaching a point in the middle, which looked absolutely stunning during the day, but at night it turned into more of a drifter death ramp. Luckily, I was able to construct a crude door and keep most of the drifters out, leaving me with plenty of free time to try my hand at pottery making, a feature in this game which I found both tedious and therapeutic. However, my base was filling up very quickly with new tools, new clay products, hay, and firewood, and it looked a lot like a tinderbox. So again, I looked at expanding my base. But first, I needed more granite. Having collected all the loose surface stones and pebbles, I figured it was time to craft a survival game staple, the pickaxe. Making one of these bad boys put every skill I had learned so far to the test. I needed a fire to burn coal, as well as my newfound pottery skills to make a crucible and a pickaxe mold, and through some trial and error, I finally had my first pickaxe, meaning the world was one granite-filled oyster, and I got right to work cracking that baby open. The bear population in my area was getting out of hand, and after a few too many grisly run-ins with my neighbors, I had finally had enough. Okay, you knock on my door, you kill me in my own home, now it's personal. Luckily, the foundation of the next part of my base was just deep enough to trap a bear. Alright, some people might consider what I'm about to do animal cruelty, but if we combine all the atrocities that this thing has committed against me, I just don't care. With a heavy heart, we gather here today in remembrance of a neighbor, someone near us. At times a bit too close, a bit too aggressive, kind of a dick. Violent though he was, he provided us with many a meal. And now he's gone. May he rest eternal in the bear pit. Anyways, I think the bear pit is going to be the perfect foundation for a multi-story residential building. Boy, do I love gentrifying graveyards. The bear pit was coming along great. I was using the bottom floor as sort of a metalworking and storage area with a nice big fire pit right in the middle. At this point in the game, I was starting to worry about the oncoming winter. You know, fears like drifter attacks, starvation, hypothermia, the fun stuff that you look forward to every day. But instead of worrying about the future and preparing for it like a responsible person, I put a sod roof on my house, which looked lovely. And I also discovered something called the chisel. I don't think it's a waste. Some people might think it's a waste, but I love decorating. I love building things. I love customizing blocks. So this is just like so perfect for me. And I'm going to go absolutely crazy. And I'm probably going to starve in the winter. But that's okay. That is very much a risk I'm willing to take in the name of beauty. I mean, just look at this doorway. It's 100% unnecessary and so over the top, but it is just magnificent. I do seriously need to fix this food problem though. I am gonna starve. The chisel is less of a tool and more of a lifestyle. Actually, it's more of an addiction, but I'm just telling myself it's a lifestyle. I even chiseled the front portion of the first part of my base just to make it look a little bit nicer, and by the time I was done, the leaves had changed colors and there was ice in the pond. So, yeah, I was in for a harsh winter. I did manage to make a hunting bow and some leather armor, which I quickly learned would have been a lot nicer to have 4 months earlier, because in the winter, the animals become a lot more aggressive and a lot harder to find. Ooh, feathers. Come here. Yep, okay. Feathers, let's go. Oh my god, there's so many chiclets. I will say there's something about orphaning 8 chiclets in the dead of winter that makes you feel bad. My first winter was less than productive. I spent almost every day hunting, every evening cooking and huddling near the fire just so I didn't freeze to death. I had some time to discover the odd cave, find some lore, find some loot, find some ore, as well as spending whatever free time I had inside my base working on my new blacksmithing forge. I spent a lot of time in that forge because it was the only place where I could stay warm all day. It was a slow and very harsh winter, but I was prepared for the new year. With the snow thawing and the food becoming more abundant, I prepared myself for success in my second year. Over the course of the winter, I figured out how to cast bronze tools, and I now had my sights set on ironworking. But first, I'd have to construct bloomeries, large clay brick furnaces used in the iron refining process. Process that takes about 24 in-game hours, but it did leave me with enough time to add a little bit of height to the bear pit, as well as adding some unique details to the front of my base. And once all that was done, I had some of the best tools in the game, and collecting resources had never been easier. One of my biggest issues in my Vintage Story playthrough was getting safely back and forth to the traders outside of the valley. Sure, my surrounding mountains provided a lot of defense against nature in general, but having to climb them and risk my life just to get some wax or an ore I couldn't find in the caves just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the risk. So I put my newly made iron tools to the test, digging a tunnel straight through the mountain and right to the traders. I think I'm gonna want to mine out the 8 outer blocks, leaving the center block in the middle floating, and then helve it off so I can get full stone blocks. I even eventually ended up filling it with water, which stopped drifters from spawning and created a little bit of a lazy river raft ride that brought me right to my destination. And with all that extra granite that I quarried out of the mountain, I put it right back into my base. I brought the bear pit tower even higher, turning it into a windmill. A windmill that turned giant wooden gears and powered insanely cool machinery. Machinery I wish I had made well before I crafted my own armor by hand, piece by piece. This set of beautifully handcrafted metalwork was forged in the fires of the bear pit. Every chain painstakingly hammered out. I'm not kidding, there was a lot of hammering. But when it hits the runway this winter season, the competition is going to be blown away. But I really shouldn't be complaining because that armor was a lifesaver. Having a full set of armor and a new iron sword, I was able to explore infinitely more caves, finding infinitely more loot, and running out of room very quickly in the bear pit. I made the decision to convert the bear pit into more of a workshop and crafting area, and I broke ground on a new building, the manor. First laying the foundation and connecting it with a long hallway directly to the bear pit, taking frequent breaks in between construction to explore as many caves as I could find. I began learning more and more about the lore. I led these people here, down to these hellish depths, gave them up to darkness and starvation, like lambs to the altar. I fear to recognize it as my own child. They would tear him apart from ligaments in search of food. Oh God, please help me. I'm still your faithful serve. What the I was starting to feel confident enough to explore some of the deeper mysteries within Vintage Story. I obtained a map that led me straight to a location called the Resonance Archive. Why is it so dark? What is this? Oh God. I crafted tools, cooked food, and prepared myself for the biggest journey yet. After wandering for days, I finally made it to my destination, a giant hole in the ground, filled with puzzles, challenges, and even a giant boss fight right at the end. The reward for defeating that boss was a library of knowledge that I haven't read through yet, because there's a lot of stuff in there. Plus, I found instructions to build a glider, which kind of caught my attention more than reading a bunch of books, because let's be honest, flying is pretty fucking cool. I quickly got to work mastering the art of flight, climbing to the top of the mountain, constructing towers to jump off of. Okay, I'm gonna make a platform with plank slabs up here and then chisel it into more of, okay, God damn it, okay. Oh my God. I'm so close to being finished this project, but my sanity is just... it's fraying, dude. It's about to just snap. I no longer had to walk back and forth from pine tree forests and slate quarries. The ability to glide seamlessly through the air, paired with my full set of iron tools, made resource collection super easy. As well as falling off of buildings a lot safer. Kind of. It gave me a lot of false confidence, actually, and I probably died more than if I would have just not had a giant pair of wings on my back and I took proper safety precautions. But that's besides the point, because flying is fucking awesome. And the workplace safety department doesn't need to know about this, okay? My Vintage Story tale was coming to an end, at least until the next big update. But I spent a bunch of time finishing up my base, bringing the Bear Pit Tower even higher, and adding a landing strip for when I go gliding. How successfully I land on that strip is yet to be determined, but it adds a lot of fun, if not that much functionality, to the base. Going into year 3, I also constructed a flax farm that hopefully will double as a greenhouse going into the next winter. And with that flax I've collected so far, I've been slowly increasing the height and size of my windmills. It finally felt like I was thriving instead of surviving. When I first started making this video, I wasn't sure the best way to show off how 200 hours in a survival game is spent. And I know everyone plays survival games a bit differently. Some people might like the exploration, the lore, the mining, the building, and I feel like I dabbled in almost everything Vintage Story had to offer. But the one thing that I think will show my progress over the last 200 hours is my base. From my rough pine log and cobble-walled bear pit, where the noises of industry can be heard ringing through the hallways, to the forge where I worked my first piece of metal, smelted my first bits of ore, received my first third-degree burn, all connected to my lovely underground farm where I not only neglected my animals of food, but also sunlight. I thought it would keep them safer in the winter, but morale seems to be pretty low down here. Moving deeper into my base, we have the dungeon, an extensive maze of hallways that connects almost every major room upstairs to every large staircase. It's a dimly lit, compact transit system that leads you to any place you need to get to within my base. My outdoor garden, for example, connected by the dungeon to my courtyard, a miniature pine tree forest with dirt stacked up against my walls to give it more of a friendly, natural feel, connected to one of my favorite doorways chiseled out of my tower wall that leads right into the staircase and straight into the canal room. I used to raft right in here, but drifters kept just walking in as well, so I had to close it off a little bit. But the armory is also in here, as well as my kitchen, which is still a work in progress. However, this is the ideal location because it connects directly to the basement where I can climb down here, make a left, taking the third door on the right, straight down into my cellar, where I store all of my food. Heading back upstairs, we have the connector hallway, which is just above the animal pen, where I've chiseled out some 3 tall doorways that both lead out to either the orchard or the courtyard. The orchard side of my base is starting to take shape. Some of the trees are not dying this year, which is really nice. And I'm very excited to see what this side of the base is going to look like in another 2 to 3 years of playing this game, because it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and there's more things to do. I love it. I love it. This is my bloomery room. I was running out of space in my bear pit, so I placed it down here. This is just extra storage for the future, and then up above here is the flax farm / greenhouse. I'm not sure if it's actually going to work in the winter, but that's to be determined. And then in the 3rd floor of the bear pit, I've got my seed and grain storage. The only room where I have a pest problem in the form of rabbits. I'm not sure why they're attracted here. Could be the grains, could be the seeds, I don't know. But what I do know is that the 3rd floor connector hallway to the bear pit is one of the nicest things I've made in the game. With ornately carved oak wood walls and pine beam archways, it's just stunning. I love this room. It took me so long. I don't want to talk about how long it took me, but I love it. And speaking of rooms that I spent way too much time on for no reason, the 4th floor of my bear pit here is just... there was no reason to chisel out these archways. They look great, but I'm just gonna shove machinery in here anyways. So somebody needs to take this chisel away from me. The rest of the bear pit tower is literally just height to add bigger windmills right now. I might do something with it in the future, but for now it's just for the industry, baby. Just for the industry. And then of course we've got the manor. A section of my base that feels relatively empty, but I eventually want to make the most ornate, beautiful place in my entire base. My goal is to eventually fill every wall with any sort of decorations or artifacts I can find. I've also got a small walkway leading from what I call the Armory Tower straight across the canal, where I eventually hope to build some sort of a gatehouse to get in and out of my base without drifters following me. Moving to the top floor of my base here through the Armory Tower. This ladder leads straight to the roof, where I have a stunning view of my lakefront property and surprisingly easy access to my roof, which is probably pretty dangerous. But hey, I built it, I'm gonna use it, okay? Climbing safely back down my Armory Tower ladder, we have the 3rd floor of the manor, a room where I spend quite a few hours chiseling out a nice granite table and incorporating a secret door to where I store all my treasure. Don't tell anyone, this is a secret, okay? It's between me and you, don't just shh. And of course, a little bit of a rope ladder entranceway to my lovely bedroom, safely nestled within my tower that has 2 other rooms in it. This one, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, maybe a study, and then this one I just jump out the window with my glider, because the glider is just so fucking cool. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support my videos and get 3 days early access to every video every week, check out the join button on my YouTube profile. Other than that, be sure to like, subscribe, check out our other wild gameplay videos and series, and stay tuned for more content just like this. See ya.